Aloha, gang. Good evening and welcome to Facebook Live with Mel and Charlie, a special edition starting right now. We're on much earlier than we normally would be, but good evening, everyone. I'm Charlie, and that's Mel, and we have a very exciting evening tonight. Our special guest will be the Mayor of Kauai, Derek Kawakami. We wanted to come on, Mel and I wanted to come on to cover some things that transpired today that might be of interest to all of you. So in the meantime, as we're getting set up here, we're going to ask you kindly to please share tonight's share tonight's Facebook Live because we want to make sure that everybody gets a hold of it. There's a lot of pros and cons. There are more pros for what we've been asking for, or what the mayor's been asking for, and there's a few that don't want it, and it's understandable. But nonetheless, we will try to get to all the questions that will be popping up tonight and try to sort out this thing. I know many of us, I'm still a little bit not happy with all that has taken place, and we'll just we'll just wait and see. Okay. So anyway, how you doing, Mel?
Doing good. Just trying to get everything set up over here. Hang on real quick. I think we are set, but
Yeah, we've got 104 of you on right now. So thank you very very much.
I think there's a lot of people that's a little perturbed, a little upset with what happened today. The governor making his announcement regarding, well, denying our mayor's request to implement a second or a two-test system. Uh, you know, I, I don't know what to think. I'm not sure if I want to say that I'm not surprised because I kind of expected that just based on what we were hearing from the lieutenant governor the last few days. But I was still hopeful that with the pressure put on from our viewers and the public, the letters and the emails that were being sent, I had hoped that they would have at least, yeah, Kauai Strong. You see my shirt? I got my Kauai Strong shirt. Um, it's a symbolic message to everyone that we got to stay strong here on Kauai. Tonight we do have the mayor coming on at 7 o'clock, and he's gonna talk about a lot of things. But I didn't want to take away from his time by sharing my frustration and Charlie's frustration. We wanted to come on a little early so we could have a discussion before the mayor comes on because I know I want him to spend as much time as he can explaining because I'm sure there's a lot of things. They're saying I sound far away. Do I? Oh, so is anybody else having problems hearing me? I'm not sure why, but anyway, could be just because throat is dry.
Well, I
Huh?
think
Oh, okay.
I think
So anyway,
you
yeah,
know most things that happen, it's understandable. It's when we've gone on this journey from the start, a lot of it was science based, right? Medically and scientific, science based, and we were given a lot of algorithms to think about, a lot of numberings, right? It tells us we were kind of walked through incubation periods, everything, and then we were told about testing and what testing does, and so when a lot of these things come out and we kind of refer back to our notes, testing is good. Testing is good. That's what we've been asking for. Now, for some reason, within this last month, per the lieutenant governor, testing is not good. One testing is fine. Two testing is not good. That's where I think everyone is getting a little bit confused. And so we kind of understand that part because decisions have been made. But it seems as almost if our mayor was attacked head on. So I'm glad we have the mayor coming on because he can give his side because there's always two sides of the story, right? And
yeah.
tonight's going to be really good, and I hope you folks are prepared for what Mayor Kawakami is going to tell you. But right now, Mel and I wanted to talk about some things that we've noticed, and then you can chime in, send in your questions, whether we're far off the mark. Like I've always said, sometimes I feel like I'm so far out there, and yet I come from a real practical approach, but for some reason, I'm just not getting it. And many of you said, "No, Uncle Charlie, you're right." But I want to know why we have this disconnect for some reason. And so,
But I think it's because we rely on the experts, the medical experts, and we've come, been on that track for a long time, and we kind of relied on that. And in fact, even the lieutenant governor himself, on the many times he's been on our show, supported that, supported the medical science approach. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, boom, changed. But and I know a lot of people asking to bring him on the show. Why? I don't want him on the show. Why would I bring him on? We've heard him. I've heard him enough times on TV and on his Facebook lives. He's explained himself. He said, if we do this, if we do a second test, nobody's going to want to come. He's convinced that the one test method is safe. He's going against every other medical expert out there, but that's his prerogative. So rather than waste an hour of my life that I'll never get back listening to him talk about his crap that he talks about on his TV or his Facebook Live, I'm going to use that hour to find people that can inform and educate all of us of what we can do next. How do we go? Where do we go from here? I understand you guys want him on here so you can shred him, but that's not going to do no good. I mean, we know it's very clear now. He's made it very clear. He's made it clear that the fact we're doing this is to bring the tourists, open it up. Why we want to see 8,000 to 10,000 people back every day in this state. We want them to take one test, and we're really not concerned if that 1 in 1,000, which he talks about, which is he has no factual data to back that up. That's his estimate, but that's not what the experts are saying. So my point is this: that's his position. Good for him. That's the EGA's position. Good for him as well. Now, where do we go from here? What can we as a community do to try to make our community safe? And I don't know what Derek has planned, but again, to bring him back on, I'm not interested. I'm not interested because he's already said he needs to answer to us. He did answer to you, Shari. He said, we are fear mongers. We are wasting our energy and we're not being effective. So I don't need him to come and tell me that again for 1 hour. I don't. Seriously. For what? I mean, it's clear. The governor's position and the lieutenant governor's position right now, that priority is opening up tourism. I disagree. I think that's wrong. I think it's unsafe. Every single doctor we've had on the show, every single doctor that's ever spoke about it disagrees with it. So now where do we go from here? Bringing the lieutenant governor on is not going to help. It's not going to help. What is going to help is increasing the number of us in the Army, increasing the number of us that can flood the governor's email and telephone and all of that. I mean,
well,
that's
let's talk about trick or treat.
Trick or treat. Honolulu mayor has in his press conference today, he said that he was going to open up or he's going to allow trick or treating for the kids, as long as the kids wear a mask. And if you're handing out candies, make sure you wear a mask. Just be safe. And the lieutenant governor said no, that it's not safe. And so it's not safe for the kid to go out with a mask and go get a candy, but it's safe to stuff 200 people in an airplane. CDC came out again today and talked about the virus spread in closed areas. So anyway, if you look at it, they have put the locals and the residents, they kicked them to the curb. We got a quarantine. We cannot travel freely amongst the islands, even with a second test, even with a first test. No, we cannot do trick or treat. We cannot do any of that stuff. You stay home, wear your damn mask, because you guys are the reasons why we getting COVID. Not
okay, let me say this. Okay, number one, let's just take this systematically. He did say, why not open because it's much safer outdoors? Didn't he say that? He said that.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, trick or treat is outdoors. but now it's not good.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I want to get at. I don't care what out, because he said outdoors was good. Now we get masks on the kids, we get masks on the people that giving out the candy. Now here's another thing. You know the CARES money we talk about. It's not good to go trick or treating, but you know the CARES money we talk about? The CARES money was given to grab and goes. So every time in Honolulu, you can drive up and get a bag of vegetables, of goods, everything that you need, that if you're falling on hard times, you can go and you can grab it. That is good. But trick or treat is not. That's the kind of stuff that irks me to no end, because if you're gonna do something, look for the solution, give us a solution, but don't play both sides of the coin to leave us in a state of confusion. Okay, and like Mel said, you're constantly, the LG is constantly telling us one thing, but yet on the spectrum weeks before, it's okay, because he made mention many times that we need to get outdoors. Okay, the spread is much less outdoors. Okay, our kids are outdoors. How much more outdoors can you get? And to cut that off from our cake, I don't know. I don't know. That is very, very crazy. But yet it's okay for you to go because it's safe. Because why? The people running those programs made it safe where you don't come in contact. They take the food, they put it in your trunk, they put it in a bag. Everybody is masked up. That's where it's at. Okay. So I don't know where my co-host went, but he went someplace. And
I'm ready. I sorry, I had to. Oh gosh, I had to step away real quick. But you did a hell of a job, man.
no, but I'm just
I had go put all the trick or treat candies in the ice box since no can use them anyway. So
since he made the statement before, outside is good, outside is good. Okay, our kids is outside, but now you're telling them it's no good. Mel said it. It feels like you crapping on us locals now. That's what it feels like. Now you're taking them away from our kids. Come
yeah,
on, come on.
it's just so hypocritical. It's not funny. I mean,
Yeah.
listening to that message today or reading the mayor's press release today, exactly how I felt though. It's like we're just getting crapped on. I mean, there is absolutely no valid reason to deny that request. Now, what I'm curious to find out, hopefully Derek can
Trick or
hopefully
treat.
Derek can bring some light, is what happened with the request from Maui and the Big Island. We understand that they submitted a plan actually. I'm not sure if it was the same as Derek's one, but Derek, our mayor had already accounted for the tests. He had already purchased some of the 15,000 of those test kits. And we know that there's organizations on Kauai that can and was willing or is willing to do the tests. So there was really no reason. Mel, you never lie. UA, hear you're fat. What? No, you never like UA. I think she's trying to say you never like hear us hear you fart. No, no, that, that definitely wasn't it. But if I ever have a fart that can make it to that microphone, I'll be very proud. I'll be very proud. Definitely wouldn't try to hide. So anyway, we're gonna find out a lot about what's going on. But the trick or treating thing to me was again just another way of saying, hey, you locals, just shut your mouth, stay in your house, don't go out. They put the whole thing back on the masks that we gotta be responsible to protect us and the visitors. I tell you, I don't know how many visitors going to come here. I don't know. I honestly do not know how many are going to take the journey over here. And if it's 6, 7,000, 8,000 a day, I don't think they're going to be treated very well. I don't think that the local people are going to be with open arms, you know, because of this. I just think that everyone is going to be upset. Can we get an update? Um, yeah, I'm trying to work with Tulsi to get her back on to talk to us about some. Give an
Mel,
update on.
because some people asking me what I did with the Snickers. It's just in case you cannot take your kids go trick or treat. Uncle Charlie going to eat the candy for them, so no worry. I mean, that's why I'm eating. You know, not many people going to eat on camera, but I'm not like most people, so I'm sorry.
We know we know that the tourism is behind this. I mean, we know, like I said, the Lieutenant Governor has made it very clear that if we go down this road, people are not going to want to come. People are not going to spend. His exact words was, they're not going to spend money to come here to quarantine for the majority of their stay. And maybe that's right, but tough. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with the health and safety of our people. And Derek's in the waiting room. I just want to, you know, the other part that really pissed me off today was that response I got from the governor's office about my requests for the information. Exactly what some of you said, that the governor suspended that law. So in other words, and I posted what they said. They said the governor suspended this law in his proclamation number 7. So there are no deadlines. So tough crap. Deal with it. I cannot even tell you what day we'll get you this information. So I'm debating. I'm thinking about, I don't know, maybe taking some legal action. I don't know. I hope there's an attorney out there that can step up and maybe offer their services, not just with getting information, because I think that's just what they should do, but also with this recent denial. I would hope there's an attorney out there that would be willing to try to file an injunction on the governor's on this plan, because who the hell is he to stop a mayor from doing what they believe is right for their island? So anyway, not in a very good mood today, but let's bring on Derek, and I don't think he's in a good mood either. Here he is, connected to audio.
Can
Hello.
you hear me?
Oh,
Perfect.
perfect.
Oh, all right.
Perfect. Good.
Well, let me take a real quick swig of my ice water because my throat stayed dry already.
I'm gonna get my coffee and my water.
Go ahead, man. Go get your stuff.
For those of you that don't know, that's our beloved Mayor Derek Kawakami. And anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, folks. I ate Snickers, and I gotta tell you, that is a major sugar rush. So ono. Whew. Snickers right before bringing on the mayor is the best way to go. Get a lot of energy. Whew. And looks like the mayor is eating candy too.
It's an ice cube that came out of my water jug.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you for
thank you.
joining us tonight. I know we're going to have a full house tonight, considering what happened today. And I don't know if I guess the timing is right. Charlie and I went on a half an hour early so we could do our dialogue, because we didn't want to take away time from you and give you this whole time tonight to share with us how this came about, what your plan was or is, and up to the denial today, and then where do we go from here? So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it right over to you, man.
Sure. Well, by now, I know that most of you have heard the news that our proposed Rule 18, which would have required a second test post-arrival for all incoming arrivals, was denied. So I would say that I'm disappointed, but that just means that we are going to work harder. We have the right team with the right attitude, and we don't get hung up on things or uh, hiccups for too long before it just fires us up even more to come up with a contingency plan. I think what I'm most disappointed in is that our team has and will work extremely hard to make sure that this island is safe. That is their top priority. And to make sure that we have an economic recovery. Uh, but I have to tell you that we feel, and our position is that we've done everything that the state has asked us to do up until this point. And moving forward, we will continue to do everything that they ask us to do. And even things that they don't ask us to do, we will figure out what ways to make sure this island is safe. We all agreed from the get-go that our inventory of tests should be preserved for the best use, which is our local residents. That is not something that we're disputing. That is why we went off on our own to firm up our own supply chain that the state is not engaging in to acquire 15,000 tests, which have all met the merit of our district health officer, Dr. Janet Berriman, and Lauren Guest. And that, to me, just speaks volume of the truth of the matter, because what has been said publicly has been along the lines that the state doesn't have the ability to get enough tests. Well, we did that for you, so don't worry about it. As far as how those tests were going to be administered, we had Cody Vanilla and our IMT team working hard to create local partnerships to administer those tests. There was no plan in place for our own people as far as inter-island quarantine. Now we have our own people that want to travel to visit family members or for other reasons, and they're still subject to the 14-day quarantine. And so what we had is a robust plan in place with the necessary resources to be able to create equity in our community by treating all arrivals the same. And this is based on advice from medical experts, experts in public health, and we worked tirelessly to formulate what we feel is a good plan. And so when I hear things like the mayors don't have a plan, well, one, that's not true and it's misleading. And quite frankly, I'm very disappointed, not so much because it was aimed at me, it's just because I'm in that EOC and I see how hard our team on Kauai works to make sure that we have a sound plan in place. Moving forward, Mel, Uncle Charlie, and to everybody tuning in, we are going to do the best that we can. Right now, as a team, we are strategizing on the best use of these tests. That could include testing returning residents who have traveled. They would still need to be subjected to some sort of quarantine, but it would be a lot better than a 14-day quarantine so that we could get them back to work sooner, back to life sooner, which, up until this point, we're unclear what the plan is moving forward on a broader spectrum, but we do have a plan. We could also possibly use it for surveillance testing, but I do want to make it clear that in one of the meetings, the Lieutenant Governor was gracious enough to say, instead of running your program, a compromise could be a surveillance testing program, which he had assured us that he'd be willing to make sure that that happens. So I gladly took up the offer. And so now they just need to deliver on that. But we're gonna do whatever we can and make use of those resources to the best of our ability to make sure that Kauai is safe and that our people are safe.
You know what I'm really confused about is early on we were talking about stopping the travel and forcing the mainland people to do a quarantine. We were told by the state's legal attorney general that we couldn't treat visitors any different than we treat our local people. And 5 months later, or whatever it is, 6 or 5 months later, we're treating our local people differently than we're treating our mainland visitors, which is a complete 180-degree turn from what we were told a long time ago, several months ago, which is quite interesting. I guess things change. I don't know, when you interpret the law 5 months ago, I don't see how that interpretation can change unless, again, unless it's being motivated politically, which we know it has. The 10% surveillance that the lieutenant governor talked about, he said on the news tonight, he said he offered that to the mayors, 10% surveillance testing, which I cannot imagine how they're going to do that unless they ask for volunteers. Did he mention in any way what 10% would it be? Would it be a random 10% of the visitors? Would it be one plane? Did he mention any kind of logistics of how that would happen?
No, no. But, case in point, we've always viewed our role as a part of a team, and we will continue to have that frame of mind moving forward. Um, I'm personally disappointed and upset, but that doesn't take away that we have a broader mission that is bigger than my own personal feelings. And so, although there was no plan for the 10% surveillance testing program, as we have in the past, Mel and Uncle Charlie, we've taken the state's plan and made adjustments on our own to make it workable and operational. Whether it was figuring out the Mahalo Green Card Placard program so that we could differentiate between visitors that were able to rent a car or not, we formulated that plan. From the beginning, we're blessed to have Kauai Police Department engage and say that our top priority is to get through this pandemic. And they threw a lot of resources to create, in partnership with the National Guard and airports, the airport checkpoint to make sure that all arrivals were being vetted as to whether or not they were staying in a quarantine location under the governor's order that was legitimate. And we made sure to engage with Kauai Visitors Bureau, KPD, National Guard to make sure that those individuals under quarantine were being monitored and any violations were being enforced upon. So we will continue to understand our role, that there is a bigger and greater need. But quite frankly, I'm disappointed that the discourse and the diplomacy has been compromised by making personal attacks on the mayors. There's no place for that sort of airing of dirty laundry. Look, behind closed doors, Mayor Caldwell and myself have gotten into it. At times it may have surfaced briefly. Mayor Victorino and I have our difference in opinions, but at the end of the day, we all call each other up to focus on the overall mission. It's okay to disagree, but it shouldn't be a line drawn in the sand, and it definitely should not be personal attacks and jabs, and certainly shouldn't be misinformation or misleading the public. When we had submitted our rule 10 days ago, and they had a chance to review even our operational plans, spelling out the details, of which they continued to say that we had no plan and that they couldn't get the tests, and that, making statements like nobody would come. Look, there's a reason why we created the resort bubbles. It was to be able to put all of these pieces together. So we'll continue to move on, and we will do what we can to get everybody into a safer place. The people can rest assured that this has not stopped us. In fact, if anything, it has reignited a fire that's going to give us energy to carry on into the next transitional period that we're moving into.
Well, I like to say, first of all, thank you, Mayor,
Thank you.
very, very much. When the LG used the word fear mongering, I can tell you with 100% certainty, it wasn't targeted at the mayors or anything like that. It was targeted at two individuals, and you're looking at them right here, because that particular term, fear mongering, has always been used against us in Facebook from day one. We've been the only ones that said, "Hey, you fear mongering." And so when it was used, we kind of knew what was being said. We knew what was being said. So I don't want it. I don't want you to feel that it was targeting you or the other mayors from the other counties, because it wasn't. We kind of know it was targeted towards us. But
Well,
having said that, some people are asking about surveillance testing, and my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like what they did at the H3 was to have a mass testing where you kind of want to see where the virus is at, right? You want to see where the virus is in the community, if it's spreading or not. Now, would it be considered that if you surveillance test down at the airport, I think the lieutenant governor that he's not allowing you to do, right? If he's allowing you to do surveillance testing.
at this point, we don't know what we are allowed and not allowed to do. We've always tried to be ahead of the curve because we knew how fast this virus spreads.
Right.
You can remember, if we were to go back in time, we really just responded a lot on instinct and a lot on the health advice from Dr. Janet and her team. And then we were required to send up proposals for approval, of which 24-hour turnaround time was assured. So it looks like things may have changed. We're not sure what it is that we're allowed to do or not to do. I know that Governor Ige has been very clear that we are allowed to opt out of the state's program, which, as we speak today, I would not be inclined to do, just because our position has always been 2 tests. We also know that we would be allowed to test people out of quarantine, which is interesting because why wouldn't I want to test somebody in quarantine to get them out sooner rather than later, right? So that is something that we're going to have to go and try to decipher. So it's interesting. And it's challenging. Now, as far as the fear-mongering thing, though, I just want to say that what you folks are providing is the furthest thing from fear-mongering, because you're providing information in a timely basis. And when you communicate effectively, that is leadership. And when you can communicate with the people, you're helping to alleviate fear. If anything, fear-mongering is when you hold your cards close to your chest, that you say very little, and then you spring a surprise on anybody. So I would say that I am with you. I value everything that you folks do as far as keeping the community engaged and informed. And look, don't let those words resonate. You folks keep on doing what you do.
Now, I wanted to ask you real quickly, before I turn over to Mel. I know the 31st, we're looking at lifting the inner island, supposedly inner island quarantine. But I don't know how that will work out. But given the 72-hour pretest, and we had Senator Kim on night before last, and we talked about this. If a trans-Pacific traveler comes from the mainland to Oahu, because Oahu has no quarantine, but they have that 72 hours. If they travel from Oahu to an island that has quarantine, are they subject to the quarantine, or they still have that free pass because they took that pretest? Because if that's the case, and they're going to visit the islands, it would be better them coming to an island that has a quarantine first, because that pass allows them to bypass the quarantine and finish up on Oahu. That's a freebie, correct?
Absolutely. That is one of the issues that we had identified with the state. From what we understand, they are trying to work a solution out to that issue. But you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, most flights are going to come in through Oahu. So most of the first stops are on Oahu. So the 72-hour
Retest.
pre-departure test covers them at least a little bit. Like there's a lot that can happen in 3 days from when you take the test to when you get on the plane. But really, what we are concerned about is you still have active cases on the other islands. And, you know, here on Kauai, if we're the last stop on that train, we're basically like the detention basin for all of the possible infection sites. So that's why our position was take a breather for 3 days, enjoy your resort bubble. You'll get a test, you'll get the results back, and upon what your test result is, will determine what the next leg of your vacation looks like. Hopefully it's a negative test result.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how they're going to deal with that. You know, it is no secret that the convenience of the traveler, the visitor, is really what the is moving this train. It's they don't want to inconvenience the traveler. The lieutenant governor said it himself that if we move forward with a second test, that in fact people won't come, less people will come, and that's the biggest concern. So that's fine. That's you know if it wasn't a pandemic, you know I can live with that. But the whole thing with this virus, and that it's still here. It's still on Oahu. It's still in the state of Hawaii, and to allow these people to come in with one test is going to really be a problem. So I hope. Have you heard anything about the 31st as far as inter-island? Will it be just completely lifted? Will the test be required? It sounded like the lieutenant governor wanted to just lift it altogether and have no testing requirement.
I personally have not heard that, but that doesn't mean that somebody from our team didn't collect that message, because they have all types of working committees. Most of them that I do not sit on, but we do have members. And so something may have been said that is the date. But I'd like to also remind people that this virus doesn't really work on a timeline. Like we don't know what the 31st is going to look like. Our main priority with the reopening of our economy is being able to stay open. I think and keep things open. Like right now, I have friends on Oahu that are looking at Kauai with sort of wishful thinking, because some of the hair salons have been forced to shut down. The restaurants were forced back into takeout only. If you were to sort of take a look at Kauai, it almost resembles almost normal, but the visitor industry, it has to be recovered. But we need to do it in a way that strikes the right balance. I think that's the name of the game, is being able to strike the right balance as far as opening up in a way that we can protect our people, the workers, manage any outbreaks so that we have the contact tracing capability, and make sure that we don't have too many cases happen all at once. And so I know that the visitor industry is suffering. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that we can get them recovered, but we're also mindful of how quickly a shutdown could happen on Kauai, based on caseload and healthcare capacity as well.
You know, okay. You know what you just said. So let me ask you this, Mayor. Honolulu has this tier system. Okay, if everything goes as according to plan on the 15th, it may not affect us, but it'll probably get to us because people may want to go island hopping, per se. So if they're still in the tier system and they're not open, how do they provide the services? I mean, the, probably pressure going to have to be levied on Caldwell to completely release the tier system, because if not, basically the visitors go to an island that just bare bones nothing. I mean, given what it's given now, right?
Yeah, and Uncle Charlie, we also have Dr. Janet Berriman that has worked on a tiered system for Kauai. It's still sort of like a work in progress, but it does give us the same tools as Oahu. It just needs to be reviewed and vetted through the team before it's finalized. But you're absolutely right. I mean, if if you have a tiered system and you're forced back into sort of a more restrictive tier based on the number of outbreaks, it makes it very hard for an economic recovery that is meaningful, because what we heard from the private sector is the shutdown is the most disruptive thing to happen in our overall economy. When you start having to shut down on just a broad scale, mom and pop businesses because it's necessary to get a handle on the fire. It's sort of like how firefighters deal with wildfires, and there's a lot of tinder around, and they manage a fire. It looks managed, but it's still smoldering, and there's a potential for a flare up at any given time if the wind conditions pick up, if something wrong happens. I mean, this is very much the situation that we are all in, is that there is an environment that has a lot of dry tinder that could flame up unexpectedly at any time. And we're trying to avoid any sort of situation of that sort.
It's no secret that the reason for Kauai's success was some action that you took early on. I mean, some bold action that you took, the continuous surveillance, I would call it surveillance on the quarantine, the people in quarantine with the National Guard and the police department, the constant checking and being able to catch these guys, turning them around at the airport when don't have a place to stay over here. So we've been very aggressive here on Kauai, again, thanks to you and your team, to give us the numbers that we have. But now with this new quarantine lift, some of these people, and what I've been told, I have a lot of friends that work with vacation rentals, that a lot of vacation rentals are being booked right now. And these people that are booking the vacation rentals are just assuming that they're gonna get their test results within 72 hours of arrival. And we know that's not going to happen in many cases. So we're going to have people that arrive to this island on the direct flights, because we will have direct flights. And when they check in at I'm assuming your check-in site is still going to be there. So they're not going to be able to check into a TVR if they're subject to quarantine, correct? That's still going to remain, right?
As we speak of today, that is my understanding. But things change at the state level, sometimes quickly, sometimes not so quickly. But yes, that is our understanding. And also, the state has been working very hard on the Safe Travels app, which is supposed to be able to take a lot of data and information from travelers and present it to the airports and the counties in a way that makes monitoring and enforcement easier. However, there are still some questions that remain from our team members on some of the logistics and how it's all going to piece together come game day. So it's not something that is perfect. It is something that they've been working hard to iron out some of the wrinkles. But like I said, if we have to figure it out on the 11th hour, we've done it before.
But your rules are still in effect. So, and your rule is the TVRs are not legal for people that are subject to quarantine, correct? And that is still in effect.
Yes, but we also have to be cognizant that in this case, with the denial of Rule 18, we're being denied the ability to govern, my ability to govern Kauai as I see fit. My rule pertains to Kauai and Kauai only. And what I'm being told is no. And what I'm also being told is you have the ability to create your own plan, opt out of ours. Well, that's no way to have teamwork, to say, oh, if you don't want ours, then don't do it. That's not where we're at. We've never said we don't believe in the state's plan. But as a team, we should be able to make improvements. Like, we should feel safe to be able to give our opinion on how to make a product better and safer. And we've done that in the past. I'm not sure if we're starting to get under people's skin. I don't want to assume that, but we want to work as a team. We don't like the feeling of take it or leave it type of thing. So although I do have my own local rules, as we have seen as to what had happened today, things may change. Things may not change. But as we speak today, yes, my rule is still in effect. But who knows moving forward how much authority we're going to have locally. I don't think that my powers as mayor will be stripped away. I absolutely do not think that's going to happen. But I have to be cognizant that it exists, the potential exists.
You know, I did want to say that we've always had this this focus on the CDC guidelines, and Avalon was a good example of the veterans home on a big island, that they followed the CDC guidelines. But as we can see now, the guidelines wasn't enough, because there's nothing that says that you cannot exceed the CDC guidelines to make it better. And I think what you're saying is the state has a rule, but if you see fit to better that rule, that's going to benefit the citizens of Kauai. But you're saying that pretty much at this point right now, or it seems like it's being taken away. So, you know, we are left with just coming up just to the standard and nothing beyond that, which, you know, it's kind of frightening. But like you said, if we just keep a cool head and look forward to what we have to do to get some kind of resolution, we'll get there. But the question I wanted to ask you is, and not to deviate of what we've been talking about, is you made a comment, because I had a couple of people today ask me about that, and this comment was about the wealthy. I think you made it on KITV or some, and it almost seems as if your statement was taken out of context, that, you know, you only focus on the wealthy and not the, you know, just a regular Joe traveler. Do you remember that interview?
Yes, I think it may have been, and forgive me if I'm wrong, it could have been just a chamber of commerce meeting. I think it was local. The reporting was done by the Garden Island. It was the headlines. It was taken out of context. It was a 2 hour or 1.5 hour, or it was a pretty long meeting, of which I had said that we have a target market. Look, I come from the business world. You have to have a target market. As Big Save, our target market were local customers. We didn't want to compete with Safeway and Foodland because we would never compete. So we focus on local customers. For Kauai, we are focused on a traveler that prioritizes health and safety. And I said it is because those type of travelers are responsible. They're more inclined to be compliant with local rules and customs, and they spend more money. And I did also say that, for now, we are not looking to be a budget destination because in the context of having to take a second test, the lieutenant governor has made it clear that he feels nobody will come if we require a second test. And I would beg to differ because people are coming as we speak. But when it comes down to cost of travel, look, if you're a traveler that's looking to travel during a pandemic, there is a cost involved. There is a cost involved by the risk that you potentially bring to our island. And there's a cost involved to our economy if we have a big outbreak and we have to start shutting down. And so my comments were along the context as far as visitors who may not be willing to pay for a second test. I do want to take this time to thank our visitor industry because we have always relied upon them in good times and bad times. And so if that article in the Garden Island newspaper had offended anybody in the industry, I want to take this time to clear the air of what was actually said and what was actually reported. And I've always valued the Garden Island newspaper as a great partner throughout our history with Big Save. We've always had a great partnership. In my day as mayor today, they provide a valuable resource, but sometimes these things happen where they will take something, they will make a headline out of it, and because of that, it will really cloud up what the context of the message was. And in this case, it may have inadvertently happened that they had taken something that I had said out of context, and people reading it may have been a little riled up by it, but that was the meat and potatoes behind it.
No, thank you, Mayor. That's what I thought. I even said, but without, being in your head when you said it at that time, I knew you could explain it. So that's why I wanted to ask you the question to clear the air because there were some questions asked about it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
No,
Was it the UH Schindler College of Business webinar? Was that where you had made that statement?
To be honest, I cannot even. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, your chief of staff posted that, so I'm assuming that's probably correct.
Well, then that was a trick question, Mel.
He's monitoring and trying to help us along here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was that's how it is. Yeah, Charlie and I was talking today. I was, that's why let's go on early and Derek can, because man, you an hour and a half or maybe 2 hour conversation, and you get 2 column inches in the paper. They're only going to take what's juicy, and that's just how it is. But
you know how it is, Mel, as council chair,
yeah.
it would drive you crazy. And you know what? It would really drive me crazy too, because we can have this council meeting that is hours and hours long of so much productive debate and a good outcome, but you can lose all of that if if what's kind of released to the public is sort of perhaps not what was our top priority, but it may have been what they heard. So I have to be more mindful on my part to make sure that my words are clear, concise, and easily understandable by reporters.
Yeah, no, that's just the nature of the beast. I understand that. Well, thanks for the clarification. I hope it cleared it up for a lot of people because we did get a lot of comments about that, and so perfect. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the bubbles, the resort bubbles, because I know there was a lot of comments opposing the travel bubbles, and Charlie and I had a discussion on it. We actually thought it was a pretty good idea that in fact you would be able to keep these people in a restrained area or constrained area, and now looking back to today's governor's decision, it's the next best thing, because now we able to track them and have them in a location, and it's, nothing is perfect, but that's the closest we're gonna get to being totally safe as possible right now without that second test. So could you explain to us, I remember early on in the discussion, one of the requirements for the travel or the resort bubble was a test, a pre arrival test. Is that still a part of the deal with the bubble?
No, the resort bubble was actually put in place when we started getting a little skeptical about the ability for the visitor industry to reopen at all, because remember it got pushed back in August, then September, and then now, October to mid-October, and it could happen again. So we did it for a number of reasons. One, from an enforcement and monitoring side, it's much more easy to enforce people in quarantine if it's in designated areas. And, that is something that is a reality. Two, we weren't clear as to whether or not the state was going to be testing children. At some point, the conversation was minors will not be tested. So that meant like 18 and under, you can come and not be tested, which is a risk. And then it became CVS or one of the partners was not going to test under the age of 12, which is still a risk. Today, it's just under the age of 5, which we can live with. So it became unclear as to what sort of plan would be in place. So we said we will create this resort bubble so that people stay on property. It's easy to enforce, but so that these guests are identifiable as well. If you're at a resort bubble, you are wearing a geo-monitoring device, which makes it very easy for people to be able to see who has traveled without taking a test. And as we speak today, and this is where people need to understand that they need to look at the whole environment of everything that is going on and not get hinged up on one rule. Because as we speak today, you could go to a resort and not really know who has traveled in. If you're in a resort bubble, it's very obvious because they're wearing something on their wrist or wherever it is, someplace visible. So people just need to be aware, and then they need to not drop their guard, because here's the reality. We have almost 1,900 people under active quarantine monitoring under Kauai Police Department as we speak today. Most of them are returning residents who have traveled for some reason. So, people have to understand that people are still traveling, and, sometimes being infected is not outwardly obvious. So you just have to take precautions. And that's why we always fall back on wearing a mask and the importance of everybody being courteous, washing your hands. And of course, if you can, try to avoid large gatherings. And if you're going to gather, wear a mask and try not to be up in each other's face, and just keep some distance and be outside if you can. So that's where we're at today.
Mr. Mayor, if I guess the difficulty comes when, because some of the hotels have contacted me. I've gone and trained their personnel in CPR and so forth, and they have this question, and they ask, Uncle Charlie, how do we know who is tested and who didn't get tested when they land? Because if they come to the hotel, I says, well, that's a good question I'm going to ask, because I don't know, first of all, if anything will get to the hotel in advance to let you know that you're having a pre-tested negative person checking in, or you're having a person checking in who hasn't tested at all, so they all have to be quarantined. Then I don't think the hotels are prepared yet, or maybe they are. I don't think so, where they'll split the wings to having those that haven't been tested and those who have been tested but are negative. as well as if somebody becomes infected, a wing that's solely isolated. Because now you're talking about different dynamics with housekeeping personnel, you're talking different dynamics with stewards that walk the floors, that whole thing. What's your take on that? And do you know if the hotels here on island are set up already to be receiving, and what kind of advance notices do they get, if any?
Well, from what I understand, the state's Safe Travel app is supposed to um, make it very clear um, to those questions that you asked as far as differentiating between arrivals that have taken a test and got their result, um, uh, arrivals that have taken a test but didn't get their result back in time, and for folks that just decided, no, I'm just not going to take the test, I'm just going to come. And so we have our team working closely with the state to make sure that that happens. And I'm not sure, and I'm not the right person to ask, Uncle Charlie, and I apologize. I think Sue Kanoho would probably have a little bit more detail as to where the resorts are at this point in time. But I do know that the resorts and the industry has been working very hard to make sure that come opening day, that they have things pre-staged and worked up to make it as smooth as possible. So I can get back to you with some answers, or if Sue's there, she can, send out that info as well.
Yeah, because I was just looking at, if it's up to the traveler to have that safe app on their phone, and I guess show it up on check-in. What are the backup plans should something happen to the phone? There's a little glitch, battery dies out by the time you get to the check-in. There's so many things that can go wrong. Then it's going to be on the hotel's back to kind of respond immediately to a situation that really, we got to vet this thing before we can just say, yeah, you'll check in, or anything. So I was just curious, but I'll give Sue a call tomorrow and try to get a better handle on that.
Yeah, and those things may have been worked out. Like like I said, there's many different facets of this operation that I am not involved in the nitty-gritty details, nor should I be, because it could be disruptive, or it could disrupt the free-flowing thinking of ideas and collaboration within our team. And so I provide much more of a broad governance and leadership, meaning that I point the ship in the right direction, and then we move in that direction, and then the team figures out a way to get us from point A to point B, based on what I think is the right direction to set sail in. And I'm not the only navigator. Like, I got a team of people to make sure that I'm pointing the ship in the right direction. I don't want people to get scared, like, bro, that is scary if this is the navigator. No, I have a whole galley of shipmates that are all there to make sure that the compass is pointing north.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, that that helps. I mean, that's good leadership when you basically set the direction and then let the people do their jobs. And I think that's absent many times. But anyway, it's good to see. We get a lot of questions about the hospitals. We get a lot of questions about unemployment. I just want the people to know that those state issues, the state and the hospitals have plans. What happens when they reach capacity? We went through that exercise a month ago when Oahu was pretty much at capacity. Interestingly, Dr. O'Carroll mentioned that I saw him on the news, and he said, and he's been on our show a few times, and he said that without the second test, he predicts the hospitals filling up, and we're going through another shutdown, before a total shutdown, lockdown by the end of the year. That's based on the numbers that he is pumping into his model, based on what he knows using the scientific data. So, like you said, Mayor, the lockdown is deflating. It'll hurt so many more people. We have 1,900 people in quarantine now. I don't know the number of flights that'll be coming in. I am told that Delta suspended their direct flights to Kauai. But what I'm hearing is that the other airlines are not, and we will be seeing some direct flights. And it may be 100 or 200 or 300 a day. We don't know how many passengers, but do you have the resources available to ramp up the police and National Guard? Right now you're saying we're just short of 2,000, about 1,900 people. How many more people can we absorb in the current resources that we have for this island?
Well, we're stretched thin, and I gotta say that, man, the National Guard has been a godsend. I mean, I don't want to let them leave. These are young men and women who are making tremendous sacrifices, giving up first baby luau's, even the birth of their own children, making sacrifices to keep this island safe. So as we speak, future funding of the National Guard remains in question. We hope that it can be extended. I want to thank General Hara and his team. I mean, I think the world of General Hara. He's doing whatever he can to make sure that the resources that the colonies need are being provided for. But we're stretched thin as far as our ability to maintain this sort of rhythm and increase moving forward. So we just have to be much more efficient. There are ways to utilize technology and testing to be able to manage our caseload. And I want people to really understand that their personal behavior and the integrity of their personal behavior is key to being able to move this island forward. And what I say is, a lot of people wear their masks at work when they go to the grocery store, but in a large amount of cases, for some reason, when they meet members of their family that are not living under the same household, or even close friends, they drop their guard and they kind of forget. And that is where a risk remains. Now, as the visitor industry kicks up again, I want to urge our people to represent this island well, to not resort to any sort of profiling, because that is extremely hurtful. We had local people being profiled and being harassed and at times assaulted just because of their ethnicity or the way that they look. Look, they have called this the Asian flu, the Chinese flu. I'm hurt because I'm part Chinese, but more so, a lot of the places that my family and I enjoyed going to is questionable on whether or not we're going to be safe just because of the way that we look. And we've seen this sort of play out throughout history, whether it was Japanese Americans who were interned, but out of fear comes behavior that is out of character. And I would not want to see our island misrepresented by any sort of hurtful, hateful, or divisive type of action, because it doesn't do anything to the current situation except put our officers in harm's way, put innocent people in harm's way, and put just a black mark on our reputation as an island. We always got to be mindful that we carry the torch for the many people that came before us, and we got to do this island right. So please, as we move forward, let's coexist, but let's be mindful of what we can do to be healthy and safe by our own behavior and actions.
I got a real quick follow-up, that is tying to that shutdown. The Lieutenant Governor was on our show. Charlie asked him the straight up question: at what point do you, after the visitors start coming, at what point do you lock down again? At what ratio? Because like you said, Mayor, this isn't, the virus don't care about a date. It's about benchmarks. And he gave us the figure 7 per 100,000. So for Honolulu, it would be 70. When they get to a caseload, an active caseload of 70 per day, they go back into lockdown. Now, he told us this when the cases were already above 70. It was at 140 or 150. Now, with that formula, that puts the number between about 6 for Kauai. Have you had any discussions with the Department of Health or anyone of what would trigger um, another lockdown for Kauai?
Yes, and you know, you know, Lieutenant Governor Dr. Josh Green, he's a physician. So I know that his word resonates anytime he speaks of anything to do with public health or the medical realm, and I respect him for that. But quite frankly, I take my guidance from the person that is closest to me, which is Dr. Janet Berman, and of course under Director Char, who's newly appointed, but has much respect in the public health realm. And so I do know that the metric system that Oahu had formulated, a lot of Dr. Berman's work went into that. And she had to work on it because Oahu is on fire with cases. She is working on one for us. And so I don't want to give misinformation, but I do know that it is sort of based on that weekly, daily average. So over the course of a week, what that caseload looks like. But like anything else, like CDC guidelines, these are guidelines. So, you know, people need to understand the expectation when we create metrics. It's to give us guidance to follow, but there is some art and science behind the decision-making process of when it gets shut down. But yes, it wouldn't take much, Mel, to answer your question very simply. It wouldn't take much to sort of force Kauai to have to go back into sort of a kind of shelter mode a little bit, just to be able to manage the current cases if we had a big outbreak.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, you know, some people were saying that, you know, should we, again, this goes back to, I get the powers that may be with the governor kind of flexing his powers. I'll just be blunt about it. But should we get a huge surge on Kauai, you have the power to go into an immediate lockdown with or without the governor, right? If we should reach that danger point.
No.
Or you got to ask him permission first.
Yeah, everything has to be approved. I think early on we had asked if we had rules that were approved in a prior point in time, if we had the ability to re-engage it very quickly without his authority, because it has already been vetted through the attorney generals, and because we've already done it before, I would have to go and double check if we ever got an answer or if that is a possibility. But as we speak today, I am under the assumption that any changes or any shift in our operational rhythm would need the approval of the governor.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess this person, and many, I would presume, they're just worried that, you know, because the governor has taken, and quite frankly, he's been open about it, his delayed action. When something is presented to him, there's always been this delay in his decision-making process. It's always been on a delayed course. They were worried that should we get a massive surge in cases, and that would require you to take immediate action, that if it does go through him, he may well, who knows, but I'm just saying he may do the stall, not saying that he's doing it on purpose, just his thought process, but do the stall while things can get worse, right? And so
yeah, I think, you know, the governor has a monumental task of which I will never I mean, it's sort of like until you're in it, you can just kind of only have like a image of what he's dealing with. So I'm not gonna even start to criticize his decision-making process because I'm the smallest island mayor. They probably look at me and laugh. You know, they probably like, this guy has got like about as much people in Kaimuki. You know what I mean? Tell him simmer down and sit down, young man. But I will say that he should see the mayors as a resource. That I know this island better than the governor and the lieutenant governor. No disrespect to them, but they know their hometown better than I would. And so when you have sort of this sort of big operation, you need to sort of have a decentralized command. Like that's a military term. And it's born out of like the Navy SEALs and special forces as far as being able to have trust in your team, that they have the decision-making process to make good decisions for what's closest at home. And so I would say that they should see the mayors as an asset for what is best for our community, because we're all tied together. What happens on Oahu impacts Kauai. What happens on the Big Island impacts Kauai. In this case, if any one of us has an outbreak, it impacts all of the islands. Like we are all in this together, and we need to continue to be working together to get us out of this big challenge.
I honestly think that if we get the surge that Dr. O'Carroll and others anticipate with the influx of travelers, that in fact the governor would definitely not block your attempt to do a lockdown. I mean, I just don't see that happening. I think that's just a whole different issue that for him is not going to, he will have no choice because we only have 9 ICU beds or whatever it is. So it's, I think if we get to that point, the problem is you don't want to get to that point, right? You don't want to get to that. You want to do everything you can to not reach that point.
Well, we have a creative bunch here. Like, at the beginning, when we had to respond appropriately as the virus approached Kauai, we did things like curfews. And that was because we didn't have even N95 masks, gowns, and enough of the basic safety equipment. And so we did things like curfews to cut back on the number of incidents that our first responders and our healthcare workers had to respond to, which was effective. We had to do quirky things like beach park user fees and parking fees and limit it to a certain number of people. So like I said, nothing is going to stop us because we're more persistent than this virus. Kauai's leadership and our team is more driven, more hungry. We are human, so we get tired, but as a team, we're a family, and we provide the necessary support to be able to withstand the long mission, the long game. We can go on and on. Like Energizer has nothing on us.
Right on, Mayor. Right on. I would like to say, I'm reading a comment here that one of the administration made a comment that to an individual that no disrespect, but Kauai has it the easiest because it's the tiniest. I mean, when I see stuff like that, Auntie Steph would tell me, honey, now's not the time to react. So I'm not going to react to something like that. But it's funny that it's out there, and only if he knew, because sometimes when you have the smallest population, that's when it can get affected faster than a big population, because you're directly in front of somebody when it's tiny. And I think they don't understand that sort of matrix in understanding when you live with a small population, that things can go bad really fast if you're not careful.
But yeah, that's funny how it's just I mean, that's just the way things are. I mean, when you take a look at like even lessons from children's books, like The Little Engine That Could, The
Mhm.
Tortoise and the Hare, there are going to be certain people that just write off our success as far as, you know, they're just the smallest little teeniest island, but it's all to scale. You know, we don't have the robust police force as other communities may have. We have our own unique set of challenges. And so we take it with a grain of salt, and we don't let that sort of chatter um, bother us because it's not productive. Right now, we're focused on efficiency, and so we stay focused on what really matters. And
Right
that
on, man.
kind of stuff is just, you know, distraction.
Right on.
Yeah, noise. It's called noise. I get sent. A lot of people have been sending me the responses. We've been on a major campaign to get people to write letters and emails to everyone. I know you've been getting a lot of them there, but the intent was to get it to the governor, lieutenant governor, and people have sent me some of their responses. Most of them are form letters. Some of them are actual. I guess they took the time out, and some of them pretty nasty. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. Let me real
No,
quick.
you
Do
know
we
what's
have any?
funny?
Yeah.
You remember when you first got back on council, like, and you know, like I'm known as like having a calm demeanor, but you know, I am, you know, I'm human, you know, like from time to time I get tired and fussy. And so, you know, sometimes it'll come out. But remember that first time when you came back on council and you were like, it was our first meeting, something had bothered you, but I was like sitting next to you telling you, nah, hey, calm down, be like water, like just, you know,
Yeah.
just, just be calm, you know, be like water. And then as soon as we like went into executive session, like my veins popped out and
Yeah.
something
And
was
you blow
said. And
up. And you blow up.
I know,
And
I,
I said, "What happened to the water? What
I
happened to the
know.
water?"
You know, those
Yeah.
things kind of irritate me, but then like, irritate me for like a brief moment in time, and then we just kind of laugh it off and just say, you know, it's chatter. Like you said, it's noise.
It's noise. It's
Yeah.
noise. There's a question here. Do we have any plans to reopen Hawaii? We depend on tourism for a lot of businesses. I mean, I think that kind of has been answered, but the plan is, and I think I just heard you say a little while ago, the plan is to open up. We all want to see it open up, but we want to do it safely and as safe as possible. But I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal here is right to be able to coexist with this virus and open up.
Yeah. That's what it is, you know, and it's really, I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way to get the community to understand that uh, discipline equals freedom, meaning your personal discipline to not get sick is ultimately what may be required in the long haul because you know, the health experts will say that there's a vaccine right around the corner, but we don't know, right? We don't know how long the vaccine is going to be effective. If you got sick, we don't know how long those antibodies will exist to give you sort of that immunity. I mean, you got to take a flu shot if you believe in the flu shot every year. And these sort of coronaviruses, they have been known to be able to evolve much like other viruses to change. So, you know, in this sense, the key to really getting back to our sense of normalcy is for people to understand that the quicker we can pull together and do things and move forward as one unit, although we may have a difference of opinion, we have to do what is best for the overall good of our society. Many times I have to bite my tongue, but for the greater good, um, I will make the best out of a challenging situation, such as being denied Rule 18. I'm not gonna beat myself up over it. I'm just going to have to work with our team to work harder and longer until we get out of this.
Well, I can say with some great sense of certainty, Mayor, that you're doing one heck of a job, and we were very fortunate on Kauai. I mean, that's why it was so important getting you on tonight, starting off with some of the hard hitting issues, because when there's uncertainty in the public that you're the mayor of, it's always good to listen from that leader so you can set the record straight. And because speculation will just make matters worse. So I'm glad you came on tonight. You put it straight, and we've been able to clear up a lot of things. And I think hopefully, it's like you said, it's uncertain right now. I know the team. You got your chief of staff and the rest of the gang behind you, uh, and they all know what to do. But it's just trying to see uh, which way this boat has to sail, because the thing that kind of worries me is very early on in the stage. I listen to the LG a lot, and he rely a lot on the science of it all. Okay, and the science is telling us now, because proof is in the pudding. Continental U.S. You look at 31, well, almost like 35 of the states now, right? In the continental U.S., it's just exploding all over the place. There's so much evidence there that if we wanted to, we can close our eyes, put our finger on the map, pick any one of them out, and we can learn something from them. But it almost seems like he doesn't want to do that. And I understand, our economy needs to open. We never said it. Mel and I never said from the beginning that, hey, open up haphazardly. We said open up, but just let's be safe about it, because we're not going to be able to turn back the hands of time if everything's going to run amok. We're limited. I used an example the other night. I got medevac to Oahu. I was lucky because I got to take off from PMRF. Yet you might know this good friend of mine that I played music with before, Rocky Paul, right? He got sick. He was left at Wilcox. By the time they could find him at a hospital on Oahu and medevaced him, he didn't make it because of the delay. Those kind of things is what I'm worried about. That if we should get a massive outbreak right now, prioritizing what hospitals will take you, what hospitals won't take you. Will you be able to get a flight to get out? Will you have a ground team ready to pick you up over there? People think that just because you're gonna fly over, one ambulance gonna pick you up and take you to the hospital. It doesn't work that way. And those are a lot of the stuff that, those are a lot of the logistics that goes on behind the scenes that adds on to this situation. And that's why I'm always worried about the science. The science is telling us, because they say, well, Hawaii, you're about like a month behind, right? 2 weeks to a month behind the rest of the states. So if what's happening now over there, I'm thinking, well, okay, then must be we're going to expect something to happen. And I'm just really glad that you guys holding the reins tight, because if it does, I mean, really, really, Mr. Mayor, it's a scary thought. It's a scary thought.
Yeah, and that's sort of where we're confused because, we're just following what Lieutenant Governor had spoken about. Like at one point, he was like, test, 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 test as much as you can. Then it was contact tracing, you know what I mean? So it was like, it depends on what timeline. We were hearing different catchphrases, but we were always consistent that it's easy in these four things. One, the holy grail is prevention. Just having people comply with the basic guidelines prevents you from getting sick in the first place. Two, it's detection. So that is where testing, the contact tracing, all of the investigation becomes so critical that you're able to do those very quickly, the testing and contact tracing, because number three is going to be containment. And that is where you need to have the necessary isolation centers and quarantine facilities to be able to separate infected and possible infected community members from the rest of society so you don't have big outbreaks, which leads us to what is critical to being able to treat people, which is number four is treatment, which is to make sure that our healthcare capacity is operating at a rhythm where they can appropriately give attention and resources to people that become sick so that they can make a good recovery. When you start to see healthcare systems that are overrun, that is where, you know, your ability to be able to appropriately treat people becomes compromised. And so when we started hearing about how this second test is a waste of time, that perhaps the mayors are scared. One, I became confused because we're just doing what you've been saying we should do, which is test. And we found our own test. So we're not taking your test. Like, we're not fighting over tests, guys. Like, we found our own. You know, you tell us what we can and cannot do, we're going to do them, but don't tell us afterwards, like, oh, but change my mind. No. And then don't mislead the public to keep on saying that we shouldn't be using our tests for visitors, because we're not. We're using our own tests with the CARES Act money, which, by the way, we had to wait 5 weeks for, which put us behind the curve, and became more of a challenge. And then, I mean, to use the kind of like, oh, the mayors are scared. That's like, it's silly, you know what I mean? Like, we can disagree, but let's not make it personal. You know, fear is a good thing if you can channel that energy into the appropriate response. And usually that means you should use that fear to have a plan. Because if you have a plan, whether it's a hurricane or a fire, then there's really nothing to fear because you're prepared. In this case, Kauai has a plan, despite what was said that the mayor has no plan. In fact, we've created great plans that we've been able to share with other counties and the state, and we will continue to do so as long as it's wanted. But you know, we have a plan, and we're going to continue to work together. But we shouldn't resort to that sort of tone, because it does nothing constructively.
Yep. You got your mic.
It's like the 0-16 coach telling the 16-0 coach, brother, you scared? You're not running the right place. You got, you know, it's how I look at it. I mean, I think when he came out with that comment about that, you know, we're just wasting our energy to pursue a second test, and that's just fear mongering. You know, I think that was shallow. I think that was just, you know, I would have much more respect for them if they came out and said, very professionally, say, hey, we've examined the risks. Our priority is reopening tourism, and we believe that the risk of doing that is not that great. But the priority is opening tourism. You cannot come out and say our priority is the health and safety of the people, but we want to, you know, secondarily, we want to open up the economy, but we're not going to let you do a second test because it's contradictory. And that's where I think I would have more respect if they were just honest and say their true objectives and goals, rather than, you know, try to make it like they're concerned about health and safety, but their actions don't show that. So it hurts too. I mean, you know,
yeah, what I heard could have just been emotion. You know, I've always known the lieutenant governor as somebody that we can work with. We may not always agree, but the current tone has taken sort of a shift, and it could just be battle fatigue. You know what I mean? Like he was just sick too, right? He had COVID-19, so we don't know what he's dealing with as far as energy level. Although I gotta assume he looks great. He's more fired up than anything. But you know, it's just, look, our plan has never been to sort of discredit the state's work and the state's plan, because that's what we hear of. And we've been working hard on the pre-departure test. You know, if the mayors want to do their own thing, fine, go do your own thing, opt out. You have that option. Nobody's gonna come. Nobody's gonna pay. This test is a waste of time. You're scared. Like, could just be emotion. And if that's the case, hey, we're all good, because I think we all get emotional from time to time. But the big picture is Kauai is a part of a team. We will continue to work as a team, and we're gonna get through this. It's like, what's next, right? So we'll do it. We'll do what we can.
Well, I tell you, a month or so ago, Charlie asked the lieutenant governor right here on this show if the state moves forward with the pre-tests of the trans-Pacific travel, and if the mayors choose to do a second test, will the state support that? And he said, absolutely, 100%. That is why I am upset. I am upset because we have followed this for so long every night that when we see the flip, it's kind of discouraging because it made sense back then, and it made sense that they would allow the mayor to make his own call or her own call for their own counties, and that is to have that taken away right now. It's kind of disheartening. It really is. I just get one last question because it's popped up several times tonight, and I always got to ask the put you on the spot question. If we get to a point, I know right now your rules recommend the mask and the social distancing and all of those things. At what point do we start considering a mask mandate, or has that been discussed at all?
Oh, it's definitely been discussed. And, quite frankly, the survey results have come in that 68% of Kauai residents are complying with mask rules, which is less than Oahu's, which sort of, it has me concerned. It does. I'm open to a mask mandate. It's just one of those things where
at some point
we want to be encouraging, we want to have community buy-in. Like, this is such a long journey that the more mandates that we do, the more fatigued our community will be. Like, psychologically, it just becomes another government regulation. What we're really trying to do is to encourage people to be courteous, that we all may be healthy, but we may have people that have to go home to someone that has an underlying health condition, that someone may look completely fine and healthy, but they may be a cancer survivor, or they may have lupus, or they may have diabetes, or they may have a heart condition. And so we really want to get this community, because if there's any island that knows how to pull it together, it would be this one. We really want the community to lead the way, to show the rest of the state and the world who we are, and historically where we have come from, as our ability to put aside our differences in order to make sacrifices for the greater good of our island and for the people that are next to us that may not be so fortunate. And that is what I'd hope to see. But if a mandate becomes required, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's just like, if it has to happen, it's gonna happen without a blink of an eye. But it becomes a challenge for our enforcement officers. It becomes a challenge for the court systems. And so, if you have a health condition that prohibits you from wearing a mask, we understand, but we also understand that you probably shouldn't be out and about because you have a health condition that prevents you from wearing a mask. If you have a traumatic experience that has happened to you where wearing a mask creates anxiety, we understand. But for people that can do it, but just choose not to because of what their belief is, we are pleading with you to please think about others and have courtesy to those that are less fortunate.
I think because the job that has been done in containing this virus on this island to almost zero. In fact, zero, with the exception of these last two cases. That's been travel related. I think what people needs to understand why masks are so important, because we've done it so long in containing. Now we're about to open the floodgates to let more travelers in. That's going to be very, very important to have the mask, because now you have added bodies that you didn't have before. You're going to have those added 800 to what, to about 1,000 on island a day. And when that happens, now you run a greater risk. So, what you're saying is just err on the side of caution. That's the best thing you can do. Err on the side of caution now, before, like you said before, you can have fun. But if you guys keep on acting up, I'll take it away. You mentioned that many, many times. I think people need to understand that, if it gets to the point that we start seeing numbers increase, okay, and it's not from travelers, but maybe coming exposed to a traveler, our local people, then maybe a mandate will have to take place. But for now, if we can just comply, right? What you say, if we can comply, then everything should be good. Everything should be good.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that technology is a blessing and a curse. Like, I was just thinking about how things have changed even in my relatively short amount of time on this earth, as far as how I receive information. I mean, I watch my daughter work tirelessly on research papers, and I think how blessed she is to be able to jump on a computer 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, to be able to get information. Like, when we were growing up, we had to get information from the library, which meant that you had to go during operating hours and go through the Dewey Decimal System, I think that's what it was, and then find information. But nowadays, there is a lot of misleading information. People have to have the ability to be able to use good judgment on what is a good source of information and what is a bad source of information. And if you are helping to, uh, I guess, continue to provide misinformation, you're really not helping the situation. You know what I mean? You're like stalling things unnecessarily because you just stuck that you right. Like, let's just work together and let's agree to disagree, but let's do what's good.
Yep.
Yep. Well, Mayor, damn, it's like, wow, we went way overboard. Any closing comments before we sign off there, boss?
No, once again, I want to thank um, you, Mel, and Uncle Charlie. I want to thank Patsy. That Oreo cheesecake was delicious, and most importantly, I want to thank everybody that took time to tune in, and especially the people of Kauai. As mayor, I am very lucky to have a good community that has led us to our relatively success so far up into this point. We're going to need everybody to continue to working hard to do the right things moving forward. And this too shall pass.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well, as always, I'd like to say thank you first to our mayor. Thank you so much, Mayor Kawakami, for coming on tonight, for answering a lot of questions that the viewers and many out there in on the island, as including there's a lot from Oahu and Big Island and Maui. So it was a good way to chime in and and listen to your points. Well taken, very good. So I can't thank you enough. To our viewers out there, thank you for joining us tonight. We told you it was going to be a great night with Mayor Derek Kawakami. He had a lot to say. Uh, Straight across the board, professionalism, A1. Can't get any better than that. So our whole goal is to educate and inform, bring it to you. You decide if you want to use the information or not. But if not, there's always a tomorrow, and we'll find something else to talk about related to COVID. So thank you to our viewers. Mel?
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Mayor, again for sharing this hour and a half with us tonight. Patsy did hear. She has been on the kitchen table mixing and blending. I don't know what she's making. I cannot really tell. I don't see any
Oreo
audio,
cheesecake.
but No, it's something different. It's something completely different. Okay, but anyway, you'll find out what it is tomorrow. But really, thanks. I think when you do your meetings, media is there. You get a couple of column inches in the paper. It was nice to hear you at length explaining everything that's going on. I hope that people get the message that we have an amazing mayor and an amazing team at the administration that is working for our safety and our health. But we owe it to them to do what we have to do. I asked about the mask mandate because there was a ton of questions about it. But if we don't have to go there, we don't have to go there. Just wear your mask for other people. Like when you brush teeth in the morning, you can smell your own bad breath. You realize that?
You can when you get a mask on.
If you don't brush teeth, you only make everybody else smell your bad breath. You don't smell your own halitosis. But you brush your teeth. Why? Because you don't like the others be inconvenienced by that rotten smell. Same with the mask, guys. Wear the mask, not because you for no other reason, but you want to make sure that because we live on Kauai. Kauai strong, remember? Because we protect the others. When this, like Charlie says, when we get this new batch of virus coming in, we can fight this off if we take care of ourselves and our families, and we be responsible. We don't need to unlock down. We don't need a mask mandate. We just do it without the law. Just do it for the sake of others. So anyway, I just had to get that in because I don't like wearing a mask. I don't like wearing a seatbelt either, but I do for everybody's safety. Okay. So again, Mayor, thanks. We continue to pray for you and your entire team. We know it's not easy, and it's gonna get a little challenging in the next few weeks. So we pray for you, my friend.
We look forward to the challenge.
All right. Thank you again, people. Awesome night. Tomorrow night, Dr. DeWolf Miller will be on at 7:00. That should be interesting as well. So please join us tomorrow night, 7:00. All right, you guys take care. God bless. We love you guys.
Aloha.
Aloha.